Barn Talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan. It's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Barn Talk. Tonight, kind of excited and about what we're going to talk about in some of the ways, and then some of it's kind of really worrisome too, in a way. But we we I talked yesterday. I had come on here and talked about uh, my diagnosis and things like that, and then I told you I was going to talk about Israel for Tuesday night, and so I wanted to record this and talk to you a little bit about Israel and about all the goods, because there's way more good than there are bad, uh, in my opinion. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that and kind of give you my take on it. And it's just my take. It's not science, and it doesn't, but I do want to tell you what I do know and what I think. And so here we go. It, Israel is a place that means a lot to me and to us. Most of you that are following us, we're Christian people, and our Christian heritage all comes from Israel, and it's an amazing thing, an amazing place, and God chose that, and He took Abraham there and gave him that land, and then that's where everything's happened. I mean, that's where it all has happened, and couple years ago, me and Dana had got a chance to go. Opportunity came along, and I ordered a trip and thought it was for her. I actually was doing it 'cause I thought I'd do something nice for her. She taught Sunday school for 30 years, and I thought it'd be just really nice to be able to give her something like that where she could see and be and witness the things that she's taught about all these years. But we got over there, and it was amazing that about the second day we were there, I found out right quick it wasn't for her. It was on for me. I was hooked. Bible come alive to me, um, like like it had never come before. This thing's just amazing. Everything, every place we went was in. We was in Israel for 14 days, and every day was jaw dropping. Every place we went was jaw dropping. Um, I mean, from the time we landed on the plane and got our luggage, we didn't even go to the hotel. We got on a bus and we started seeing different sites and things. And one of them is the very first day, the very first site we went to was one of them I'm going to talk about today, or won't talk about just a touch. Is we went to an observation deck. It was just out from Tel Aviv. They're going toward the Sea of Galilee, up sort of in the north part of Israel, and and we get on this observation deck. We stop and get off the bus, and then get off in this observation deck. And we're all excited. We're tired. We've been on a 13-hour flight, so it's tired, but we still, was excited about being there. And it's the very first place we went to, and we're standing out and we're looking, and this observation deck is across a valley. This valley is, I mean, it was huge. Um, I mean, huge valley. And when you get to looking down there was two what it ended up being was runways out of this mountain that we're standing on top of. We're, on this observation deck way high, and underneath that, we were told that was a military air base that Israel. That's where a lot of their fighter jets was stationed and stored, and these two runways was out of that. That's how big this valley was. So if it kind of gives you an idea, it was huge, and they went out in kind of in angles such as this, and it was just amazing how they did. But anyway, the significance of that valley is this is the valley that the Bible speaks of, where the Battle of Armageddon is going to be fought, and it's going to be right down that valley, right where we were at there, and they said this is where it's going to be fought, and this is where the talks in the scriptures about where the blood will run from a man's blood will run as deep as a horse's bridle. And you get to thinking about that. Um, it's a lot of That's a big area. I mean, it was huge, and so anyway, that was our very first place we went to, and, with all this unrest that's going on over there, I get to thinking about that quite a bit. Actually, a lot of the places we went to, I think about those now because they're really active right now, with their military flying and this and that. So, I think about them and the people that we met, and the faces that we saw, and and the smiles of the young people that was there in the military. I mean, it was such an amazing place, an amazing time, and what I guess the point I want to get across tonight is we watch the news and don't take everything at face value of the way the news is treating us, because they always try to make Israel somehow or another to be out the bad guy, and they're not always the bad guy. That's God's chosen place, and and they're gonna defend it. He's gonna see to it, and he's gonna give them everything they need to take care of that. I believe that as much as I'm sitting here. And the press, as left wing as most all of it is, and as far from the Christian values as you can get on most of it, would want you to believe other than that they're the bad people and they're the ones that provoke all this stuff, and it's not so. And once you go there and you've been there, and the ones of you that's watching that has been there knows what I'm talking about. Under the Star of David, there's three major religions. Three. You got the Orthodox Jew, you got the Christian, and you got the Muslim, and they all three coincide and live together there. All of them in the military. I mean, the one in the military. I'm not sure about the Orthodox Jew. Um, Not sure exactly on the military status with all of them. Um, but I know that there's it's just mixed. I mean, they just all together there. They lived kind of in separate quarters, like in Jerusalem when we was there. There was a quarters of the town of the city of Jerusalem that the Orthodox Jews lived in, and there was other quarters, and land that was owned by the Muslims, and then there's thousands of Christians. I mean, it's just amazing how it all just goes together, and it's all under one government, the Star of David, and it's not, you don't see uproars and rioting and everything with the people of Israel. And then it's always from the outside coming and doing something from the outside of that. And most of that for all of us and this country and other countries we get propaganda. We get told things that's not true, or if it is, it's maybe just parts of a truth. It don't show the whole picture. And I learned that while I was there. And I'm tell you, if ever in this last 4 years of our country, and I'm not going to get too deep into politics here, but you know, getting lied to and deceived and deception is a big thing in our press. And that's how they control people. That's how they control everything, is about they control the narrative. So they'll lie to you to make you believe and want you to believe. And if you keep hearing it enough, you're going to believe that lie, you know? So what I'm telling you, you can read scripture. You can read the Bible and it'll tell you, and the scriptures will stand when everything else is gone. So, the truth will stand when it's all over. And so anyway, I wanted to talk about that a little bit, and because I've seen with my own eyes, I've seen it. I've seen how beautiful that country is, and a lot of people don't realize and don't know. But and the only reason I got to know this, and then when we went, I was able to ask questions and stuff like that. But being in the trucking business, and in the refrigerated side of the trucking business, reefers, I haul a lot of produce, or my trucks did, and I dispatched a lot of that, and it was amazing coming off, especially off the East Coast, up and around the Delaware and the ports in Bayonne and places like that. You pick up, and it was produce, and it all come from Israel. I mean, it's amazing that Israel, how much produce they produce for this world. Not just for them, and not just, I'm talking about it goes all over the world. I mean, this place is amazing at how much produce, and it's not not big a country. It's just not very big at all. And so that really surprised me when I first started hauling that and seeing it. So when we went over there, I got to asking a lot of questions about it, and then you get to see these beautiful fields, and as we was traveling, through the country, and everywhere you went, it was just beautiful, fields. I mean, there was some desert. Don't get me wrong. There was some places that was desolate and desert, but for the most part, it was the most fertile. And one thing they do over there that I've never seen and never even heard of, but they catch just about every drop of water that falls on the country of Israel. They catch it somehow or another, and they use it and all their irrigation systems, like to all their fruit trees, into their vegetable plants and things like is all computerized. It's all, it's just exactly how much water it needs, not more, not less, to make it yield its most. And so they utilize. They're very smart people, but they have they have it figured out from the standpoint of who's leading that too. The Lord, when that's just His land. I mean, that's the land of milk and honey. It's the promised land, and and uh, and the Bible says that's where Jesus is coming back to reign 1,000 years. And you know, it's just an amazing thing, an amazing place. Two stories that I want to tell, and then I'm just going to keep it kind of brief as much as I can. There's a lot more of Israel that I want to share later, and as we will as time goes. But these two stories today, um, we got asked, you know, the night that we were leaving to come home, um, was back to Tel Aviv and back to the airport. Well, we was back to a hotel there in Tel Aviv, and they told us, we'd get showers and get freshened up, and then we'd be heading on to the airport. We are going to be flying through the night. At least it was nighttime there, and there's another 13-hour flight back to the States. And anyway, we all met after we got cleaned up and got things together. We all met back down in a room, in a conference kind of room, and it's 37 of us that was on this tour, and we all met. And one of the questions that was asked, they wanted us to go around the room, and they asked, you didn't have time for everybody to give a lot, so they asked your two most favorite things that you got to do, or the two most favorite things you saw, or what touched you the most. They wanted two of them. Well, I'm gonna give you my two. Everybody's was different, but for the most part, everybody had something that touched them a little different. The Garden Tomb, or I mean, that was a beautiful thing. Getting to go up on the Temple Mount was amazing. Getting to go on the Mount of Olives was amazing. Um, Garden of Gethsemane. I mean, you name it. There was so many of these things. Pernium, the Sea of Galilee, got to swim in the Dead Sea, got to put our foot in the Red Sea. We got to go down to where Moses and the children was in the wilderness for 40 years, and we got to do all these things, and um, they were all amazing. But my two were different than that, so I came my time. I told them, I said, my first one, I said, about the third day we was in the country, second or third day, I think it was the third, we went on a Jeep excursion, kind of, all of us that wanted to do that. And I don't think everybody went, but for the most part, anybody wanted to go, they had Jeeps. And so we took off and out of the Sea of Galilee down the bottom down there, and we went across the Golan Heights and went all the way across, and it made a day excursion out of it, but went to the Syrian border. And it was an amazing day, amazing afternoon, amazing morning, amazing afternoon. But I'll never forget a guy that's local, friend of mine that was with us on this, was in the same Jeep with us, and he asked the driver. I was sitting up front with the driver, but he asked from the back. He said, "What's it like?" He said, "Just tell me what it's like that your neighbor is wanting to cut your head off." Just out of nowhere, he asked that, and he started laughing. The driver did, and he was a nice guy and talked perfect English. And he said, "My neighbor don't want to kill me." He said that is exactly what the press would want people to think. That's how they fear and control everybody. So my neighbor don't want to kill me. He said, "We're all kin." He said, "We're all somewhere or another kin over here." He said, "It ain't nothing like that." He said, "The problem is," he said, "there's extremists." He said, "There's extremists everywhere." And he said, "And those are the ones who create the power and get money, and then people from other places start putting money into them, and then that's what causes the problems, and then the press picks up on any little thing like that and blows it plumb out of proportion. It makes it look like the biggest thing, and this is so true. I mean, I've seen it since we've been home. I've seen it a ton. I never had noticed it that much before until I got home. But he said that, and he said, "It ain't nothing like that." He said, "My neighbor," he said, "we all get along great." And you know, most of us were all kin somehow or another. So anyway, that was just the story when we first started to leave, and then we started driving across the Golan Heights, and it was amazing that the the farms that we went to. We went to dairy farms. We went. It was cows. It was beautiful there. If you just had the lusciousest green grass that you could imagine, these flowing um, mountains, I guess you call or the pastures, but anyway, rangeland. It was beautiful. I'm talking about the greenest, prettiest grass you ever seen. And then you go into another place that would be a farmer's place that raised produce, and his fields would be so beautiful, and they'd be turned with I mean, this beautiful soil, and the irrigation systems were just, you know, it was amazing how all that worked over there. And so that was just, I could go on about that, but I'm trying to keep it short. But it was just beautiful. Take my word for it. I asked the guy, the driver, a question. Of course, we've been talking most of the day, and I asked him. I said, "How will we know when we're getting close to the border?" I said, "You know, I know that's where we're heading." He said, "You'll know." He said, "You'll be able to tell." He said, "As we get close to it," he said, "you'll be able to tell." And he kind of left it at that. And so we eased on through, and we stopped at another farm and met the people there, and that was the dairy farm actually we stopped at, and got to talking with them people, and it was just amazing. It was just, you know, it was one of them kind of days. And you know, they try to live and have a life like we have, and everybody else, they're just wanting to survive and have a good life and raise their kids, and they're not wanting politically wanting to be more or less. They just want to be left alone and have a life. Well, that's what we all want. It's no different. And so anyway, we get back in the Jeep, and we heading toward Syria and to that border. And as we get in there, as we was going down this little road, or it's a pig trail. It was just wasn't a big road at all. um, we're going in, and you can see it from up in the front where I was sitting at. You can see it really good, because it was like the color was changing out in your horizon out there. You know, it was turning more from a green and tannish kind of area to more of a brown, and it was like, whoa, it's amazing. And because you could see it coming at you, you know, and you think, or you coming toward it. And so we get there, and we all get out of the jeeps, and we're still standing on the Israel side, and we're in the grass and then the road right there in that little parking lot. So that was gravel and dirt and stuff. But for the most part, we were still on the Israel side, and then we walk over and kind of get into this area, and I told him, I said, it was such an amazing thing, because I caught myself, you know, and here I am, I'm straddling the border between Israel and Syria there. And I'm looking down, and one foot's in grass and the other foot's in the desert. Now, that's my feet. That was me standing there, and I'm thinking, you know, and it hit me right then. For all these people that don't believe, that's non-believers, you ought to have been standing where I was standing that day. You ought to have seen what I seen that day, you know, and tell me there's not a God. You tell me there's not a plan. And he didn't tell them that that's the land of milk and honey. That's the promised land. And I seen that with my two eyes and my feet. One standing in Israel, and the other one standing in Syria. One in the desert and the other one in green grass. Now, what's the chances of that? You know, and I said that one spoke to me, and then got me. I thought, man, how can they be an atheist anywhere? How can they be when that happened? When I mean, they just ain't seen, they just hadn't been seen. Their eyes ain't been opened, because it was real. It was real as I'm sitting here, real. So that was my first one I told that night. My second one was, we were down and we were in Jerusalem, and had been down there for, we was probably into the beginning of our second week being in the country, and everywhere, like I said, we'd been is it has been jaw dropping. I mean, just to tell you, it was amazing. And but this particular day, the the day before, let me back up. The day before, we'd had some people getting sick, and I ended up being one of them. And they called it over there. They called it the Jew flu. So you've heard that old saying that got the Jew flu. Well, I had it, and I'm gonna tell you, I was up all night, sick, aching, running a fever, felt bad. I mean, just felt bad. I thought, my goodness, and I told Dana during the night, I said, I'd been up 2 or 3 times trying to get the fever broke, and I said, I may not get to go today in the morning. I said, I may just have to stay here at the hotel and let y'all go. And she said, well, that'd be okay if that's what you think you need to do. And next morning, about 5 o'clock, because we left, you better get up early and get your breakfast in because the bus leaving, sometime after daylight, and you're gone till bedtime that night. I mean, that's how every day was. And so she started getting up and getting her things together and getting dressed and getting her shower. And I'm letting them thinking, she's going to go ahead and leave me. He's going to go ahead and go and leave me in here. And I said, there ain't no way. I can be just as sick on that bus as I am right here. I said, I am not staying in here. I said, and miss. And folks, I'm going to tell you, I that day was one of my best days. And I hate to think that I would have missed it. But the devil tried. He tried to cheat me out of it by being sick. But Lord had other ideals and stuff. So anyway, we get out and we start driving in the bus and go out of Jerusalem that day. And it was amazing because we drove 30 minutes or so, I guess, out and we stopped at this one place and it was an underground place that they raised pigeons, and I'll get to that story some other time. It was a really good story, but it's all underground. And but then we leave there and we start coming back, sort of back towards Jerusalem, and we come up to this crossroads, and it was amazing because it was just 4 big old fields. I mean, and then there's roads crossed there, and so we turn left and we drive out for just a little ways, and there was a what we would call here in Alabama, we just parked in the ditch. We just pulled over in the ditch, but it really wasn't a ditch there. It was just kind of on the shoulder of the road, the side of the road, off the road, however you want to call it. And there was some cut over brush like stuff there and a little roughage and stuff. And we parked right there. And he said, okay, let's get off the bus here. And so we all get off and we start walking back down the side of this road and back out to where that field was at. And then we walk out into this field, and when we get out there, there's this it looked like a flume type thing, but it was just like snaky all the way through this field, and it went out through there, and it's like, what is this? And when you get onto it, it was kind of concave, like a flume, but it was dry. I mean, but it went all the way through this field, and it was lined with rock, and I thought, man, and we didn't have a clue because they never told us until he started telling the stories and preaching the messages of everywhere we went. We really didn't know where we was at. And so we're standing there and all of us in this kind of area, this rocky area here and out in the middle of this field. And he said, I want all of y'all to turn around. All 37 of us was facing him. And he said, I want all of you to turn around. And he pointed and he said, you see that mountain back there? He said, that big mountain back there. He said, do you see how that mountain falls off into this valley and into these fields back there? He said, right there. He said, right there is where the archaeological digs is going on right now. As we speak now, they're still going on. But he said, right there is the best they can tell with all the digs and all the stuff they've done is where Goliath and the Philistine army was encamped at. And it hit home real quick about where we was standing and what we was at. And then chill bumps gets run all over you. You know it. Everybody knows that feeling. And then he said, now I want you to turn back around. And so we turned back around. He said, now you see that mountain back there? He said, that's got one tree left out there. But he said, that mountain right there is where Jesse and all his boys was encamped at. That's where David brought the food when he come to feed them and take care of them. That's where he brought that to, right there. And he was wondering what in the world's going on. And that, you know the story about the Goliath, the giants down there taunting him and all that. And he said, well, somebody got to fight him. And he said, anyway, so he decided to do it. Anyway, where we were standing was in the very vicinity of where David and Goliath met. And it was amazing. And he started preaching that message about how Goliath had been taunting them, for all those days. And then when he gets down there to him or gets close to him, he starts taunting him. And the Bible speaks about, said, they sent a mere child. They sent a mere child to fight me, And you wonder how that, because I had never caught that when it was being preached, but that's how close they were. And then in this flume, this what we were standing in, was amazing because it was kind of concaved and all this and anyway, anyway, it wasn't that wide, wasn't so you could see how they could talk to one another. You could see how he could hear him, and how he was laughing at him. But he didn't get the last laugh. Old David reached down there and picked him up 5 smooth stones, and that's what these are right here. Same thing. Come out of the same creek, same place that David picked up his stones. That night, that day, when I hadn't been feeling well, battling all night with being sick, and I just got thinking, if it was good enough for David to fight with, they're good enough for me to fight with. So I just bent over while he was talking, picked me up 5 of them smooth stones. I put them in my pocket, and this is the truth, and I'm telling you, it's looking as straight as I can and being as honest with you. I wasn't sick another minute on that trip. I didn't get sick again. I was not sick anymore after that night. Um, and I've held on to my 5 stones, and you'd be amazed how many stories they are out of these since I've been home, where people come by to see me and say, "Hey, I talked to you a few minutes." I said, "Absolutely." And they said, "Well, start to." I said, "Well, wait just a minute." And I reached back behind my desk there where I keep these on a shelf in my desk there. And I said, "Hold on." I said, "Hold on to these stones right here." I give them these 5 stones and asked them what they are. And I said, "I'll tell you what they are after. You just go ahead and tell me what you got, and let's talk about that, and then I'll tell you about my stones." So they'll tell me, whether it was family issues or work or a wife or a husband or a brother or sister or finances, whatever it is they talk about. We all been there. We all have people that we share with and this and that. Well, that was the way. Anyway, they'd tell me, and then they would ask me, "So what's the deal with these stones?" I said, "Well, let me just tell you about them stones. Let me tell you where them stones come from. And if they were good enough for David to fight with back in the day, they're good enough to fight this situation that you having or I have or anybody else have. They ain't nothing too big for God. And the Lord let David use smooth stones, and there's a reason for them being smooth. Most of the stones in there like that are all jagged and rough edged and things like that. They don't fly straight. Again, David was very good at what he did with his sling, but he had to have things that would fly, these are so smooth. Well, that whole place was nothing but smooth stones, and it was amazing to see that. So I just wanted to just give a brief explanation of what that is and uh, why we have the stones out and why that happened there. Um, and they there's always different stories, and I'm gonna get into that later. I'll come back to those when we talk about Israel again. About everybody has a different reasons why. We know what one of them was for, but we wasn't sure what the other 4. The Bible is not completely clear what the other 4 stones was, so everybody has a different perspective on that. 4 brothers, or and all the different things. But mine, I have a little different take on it, and it's just I got a I got something for each one of them, and anyway, I'll share that for another time. But anyway, that was my 2 stories, and it went to prove that everybody had a different story. That different ones had different things. The garden tomb was a lot of them because that was a very special moment. It's empty, and to me that is exciting. That baby was empty when we was there. It's still empty, and the promise was it'll always be empty. And that was an amazing moment. We took communion there in the garden and got to see the hill of the skull, and that was amazing to see. And that just a lot of different things. So Israel has a lot more good than any. The bad has been because it has been made to look bad, and I believe that. Because you don't see the rioting in the streets from the people of Israel. You'd see it coming from the outside. It's always from the outside. The people of Israel take care of one another, and it's multiple religions. It's not that every one of them is Orthodox Jew. The Muslim and the Christian faith, all of them coincide together there. And we ought to learn something from that, all of us. Or learn a lot more from that. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. We're going to drop this. This will be on our Tuesday night drop, and I promised y'all I would do that. And I just want you to know that from me and from my family and from the Barn family that we love y'all. Love this opportunity. I gotta say this. I got a little convicted today going to church this morning on the way. I was driving. I got to think about it. I said, I made a statement last week in one of these things I downloaded, and I made the statement that I'm retired now, so this is my new job. And I got convicted over that. This ain't no job. This is the biggest blessing and the most honors thing I've ever got to do and had a chance to do. And I won't give God the credit for that. And this ain't work. This ain't no, this is, anyway, I'm honored and getting the opportunity, and for the ones of you that's listening, and I appreciate it more than you know. And so I just want you to know that we love you, and then we'll be getting some more stuff together and getting it downloaded to you real soon. So thank you and love y'all, and take care. Have a good night.
Out here where the hay meets the sky, Roger's got stories you can't deny. Faith, family, and everyday grind. Pull up the seat, you'll find peace of mind. Barn talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan, it's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend. The rooster crows and the coffee brews, sharing the faith and some hard-earned news. Every hammer swing, every prayer sign, Roger's here to talk life, yours and mine. Barn Talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan, it's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend. Just lending ear. Patchwork stories and lessons unfold. Barn Talk's a treasure worth more than gold. Barn Talk, where the truth takes a stroll. Life's little lessons with a heart full of soul. From sunrise chores to the good Lord's plan, it's Roger's Barn Talk. Pull up, my friend.